Is that why you shot up a car last night?
Did someone say I shot up a car last night?
You said you just drove around.
I drove around and I shot up a car. What are we, hippies now?
What if Martin McDonagh's next movie isn't just another stylish crime story, but the exact kind of savage, funny, beautifully twisted thriller that reminds everyone why his name still carries so much weight? Because that's the feeling I got the second I watched the first trailer for Wild Horse 9. And the more I sat with it, the more it felt like this movie is not trying to gently ease us back into McDonagh's world. It's kicking the door open with the kind of setting, cast, and tone that practically dares people not to pay attention. We're talking about a fictional story unfolding right around the 1973 Chilean coup, 2 CIA agents thrown into a mission that looks unstable from the start, and a Martin McDonagh script that already seems packed with the exact kind of sharp-edged, darkly hilarious, deeply uncomfortable dialogue that made his best work hit so hard in the first place. That is a dangerous combination, and I mean that as a compliment. Because when Martin McDonagh is locked in, he doesn't just make movies. He builds pressure cookers. He takes wounded egos, bad decisions, bizarre personalities, moral ugliness, and strange pockets of human tenderness, then throws them together until the whole thing starts to spark. That's what made In Bruges so memorable. That's what gave 7 Psychopaths its manic identity. That's what made 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri impossible to ignore. And that's what made the Banshees of Inisherin feel so deceptively simple and so emotionally devastating at the same time. Now he's back with Wild Horse 9, and from this first trailer alone, I can already see the bones of another McDonagh movie that's probably going to leave people laughing, flinching, and arguing about it at the exact same time. Honestly, that's exactly what I want from him. The setup is already strong enough to hook me before the trailer even gets clever. Wild Horse 9 takes place shortly before the 1973 Chilean coup, and it follows 2 CIA agents, Chris and Lee, who are sent from Santiago to Easter Island by their bureau chief, MJ. That premise alone has tension baked into it. Political unrest, institutional secrecy, remote geography, men carrying old baggage into a mission that clearly isn't going to stay clean. The farther a story like this gets from ordinary civilization, the more dangerous the emotional weather becomes. And McDonagh knows how to weaponize isolation better than most filmmakers working today. That's one of the first things I noticed here. This movie does not feel like a globe-trotting spy thriller in the sleek, polished, traditional sense. It feels dirtier than that. Meaner, stranger, less interested in cool professionalism and more interested in watching a couple of unstable men talk, argue, bluff, posture, and slowly reveal what's actually broken underneath them. That's very McDonagh. The missions in his films are almost never just missions. They're excuses to trap difficult people in confined emotional spaces and let the damage rise to the surface. And Wild Horse 9 looks built entirely for that. The casting only makes that even more exciting. Sam Rockwell and John Malkovich as CIA agents in a Martin McDonagh movie is the kind of pairing that almost feels unfair. Rockwell thrives in this kind of material. He's one of the few actors who can make volatility feel funny, sad, dangerous, and strangely lovable within the same scene. He doesn't just play chaos. He calibrates it. He can make a man look ridiculous and wounded at the same time, which is exactly the sort of emotional contradiction McDonagh loves to write. And then there's John Malkovich, who somehow always feels like he's carrying a private joke, a hidden threat, and a lifetime of contempt all at once. He doesn't need to do much to create tension. His voice alone can make a line sound like an insult, a confession, or a warning depending on how he aims it. So when I see these 2 actors thrown together as longtime CIA partners navigating conspiracy, political instability, and whatever emotional rot this story has waiting beneath the surface, I immediately understand why this trailer is already generating real interest. This pairing has teeth, and the trailer knows it. One of the best things about McDonagh's writing is that he understands chemistry does not need to be warm to be magnetic. Sometimes the best screen duos are held together by irritation, resentment, dependency, and the sort of grudging connection that can collapse into violence or affection without much warning. Wild Horse 9 looks like it's mining exactly that kind of tension. Chris and Lee don't look like sleek spy movie icons. They look like men who know too much, trust too little, and have spent enough time together to understand exactly where to hurt each other. That's wonderful, because that's where the real entertainment starts. The trailer also makes it clear that this isn't just about mission logistics or historical backdrop. There's a more human complication running through the story. Searchlight's official synopsis points to Chris developing a new bond with a pair of rebellious students on Easter Island, and that connection appears to threaten the mission in serious ways. That detail matters more than it may seem at first. Mcdana loves using unexpected emotional attachments as disruption devices. The second a character starts to care, or starts to reveal some dormant moral nerve, the machinery around them begins to shake. It's never just sentiment. It's sabotage. It destabilizes plans, exposes hypocrisy, and forces people who thought they were functioning just fine to suddenly confront what kind of person they really are. That is classic McDonagh territory. It also gives Wild Horse 9 something that a lot of dark thrillers desperately need: unpredictability that comes from character, not just plot. Anyone can write a secretive mission gone wrong. What separates the forgettable versions from the memorable ones is whether the collapse comes from something emotionally specific: a bond, a guilt, an insecurity, a buried weakness, a stupid decision made for irrational reasons. If Wild Horse 9 really leans into that with Chris, then the movie's central unraveling won't just be political or procedural. It'll be personal. And when McDonagh gets personal, that's when his work tends to become genuinely dangerous in the best possible way. There's also something deliciously fitting about McDonagh staging this kind of chaos against the backdrop of a real historical rupture. The 1973 Chilean coup is not light material. It carries real political gravity, real historical violence, and real moral weight. So the obvious question becomes whether Wild Horse 9 is using that moment as mere aesthetic dressing, or whether McDonagh is actually doing something thematically sharper with it. Based on the trailer, I think the answer could be more interesting than people expect. Because the presence of CIA agents at that historical moment immediately introduces tension between absurdity and atrocity, which is exactly the kind of tonal tightrope McDonagh likes to walk. He's drawn to stories where grotesque humor and deeper pain exist in the same breath. If Wild Horse 9 is smart, and I suspect it is, then the comedy won't be there to trivialize the setting. It'll be there to expose how morally absurd powerful institutions and compromised men can become when history turns violent around them. That's much richer material than just quirky hitman banter. And frankly, that's why this movie has real awards season potential. Let's talk about that for a second, because the release strategy is not subtle. Searchlight is putting Wild Horse 9 in theaters on November 6th, and nobody drops a Martin McDonagh movie into early November by accident. That is a date that screams confidence. It says the studio believes this thing can generate serious conversation. It says they know McDonagh's reputation, this cast's firepower, and the film's likely mix of prestige and bite give it real positioning value in the late-year race. And honestly, they may be right. McDonagh has already established himself as one of those filmmakers whose work naturally attracts awards attention without ever feeling like it was manufactured in a lab to win trophies. That matters. Audiences can smell when a movie is begging for validation. McDonagh's best films don't beg. They provoke. They divide. They needle people. They make some viewers call them brilliant and others call them too cruel, too weird, too abrasive, or too self-conscious. But even when that happens, they stay in the conversation. That is its own kind of power. Wild Horse 9 feels like it has that same potential. The trailer is doing another smart thing too. It is reminding people what McDonagh's dialogue sounds like when it's fully alive. There are writers who can plot well. There are writers who can create atmosphere. There are writers who understand structure. McDonagh's particular gift is that he can make people talking feel dangerous. A line in one of his movies is never just a line. It's a provocation, a confession, a joke with a knife hidden inside it, or an attempt to reclaim status in a situation where nobody really has control. That rhythm is already visible in this trailer. You can feel the collision between deadpan absurdity and gathering menace, and that's the exact flavor his fans have been waiting for. Thanks for watching, stay sharp, trust nobody too quickly, and I'll see you in the next one.